The chair recognizes Mr. Martinez-Fischer to explain the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Members, this is an amendment. I think you're going to want to pay attention to this. The effect of this amendment could give a public school teacher, a counselor, librarian, a $10,000 pay raise. And the reason why I want to stress that is I know we all care about public education. I know a lot of us spend a lot of time talking in our communities about the importance of education. A lot of us have children in our education system. Some of us are even have spouses who dedicate themselves to this profession. And I lay all that out because we know that's important, but I also lay that out because I know that we have to, not just do things or say things, we have to act. And one of the very first things we did in this body together, when we arrived in session is we took a vote to raise our own budgets. We pretty much unanimously took a vote to raise our budgets, and the constant talk was we cannot afford to pay for our staff. We cannot afford to pay them with the budgets that we have. Inflation is an issue. Cost of living is an issue. Housing costs, price of eggs, $6 a dozen. And so we took a vote, a hard one, to raise taxpayer dollars for ourselves. And I know that we don't want to go home and say that it was okay for us and not okay for anyone else. And so this amendment does a couple of things, and let me tell you what it doesn't do. If you're worried about being anti-property tax cuts, understand this. Democrats pay property taxes. Republicans pay property taxes. We have constituents that pay property taxes. There's bipartisan support for property tax cuts. What we don't have is a property tax cut law. We do not have a law today that's going to cut property taxes beyond the first $5 billion that's already in the budget. This amendment will reduce the general revenue for some future tax cut that we don't know if we're going to get. And I'll be honest with you, we don't know if we're going to get it because we have a split view in both chambers. We have a Senate that wants to cut taxes one way. The House wants to cut it an entirely different way. And we're going to be at loggerheads, and the word is that nobody's going to give in, so we may not need $12 billion to be sitting around for a property tax transfer because we may not have a bill. But here's what we do have. We do have a current commitment to our teachers. We do have a teacher pay scale. We do have teachers in the profession that cannot afford to teach anymore. And we have generational wealth in our budget coffers. So what this vote does in effect is this vote says we're going to have a strong vote today to emphasize that on Article 3 spending, we have not done all of our homework when it comes to our teachers. I said this last night in Democratic caucus in the presence of Dr. Bonin. There are a lot of good things in this budget in the first 10 articles, and there's no denying that. But for me, in Article 3, it doesn't pencil when I look at the money that's going in and I look at where it's going. I don't see us increasing our amounts to public education, and if this amendment's not acceptable, we can get into the Q&A from the back mic and talk about that. But if we send a strong signal that we really care about Article 3, not just the money that we put in the schools and the textbooks and in the classrooms, but for our teachers, for our counselors, for our librarians, if we acknowledge that we have not raised their salaries since 2019, two things have happened since 2019. We had COVID, and we had the increased cost and responsibilities and demands on our professional educators and professional staff to adjust to that, putting them in a pretty, health and safety situation. And we also have had record high inflation that we have already decided is a problem for us when it comes to paying our staffs. Well, the inflation obviously exists outside this Capitol. Federal Reserve said last week that it has not gone away. Interest rates will continue to go up. So if you follow the markets, this issue has not been solved. And if you look at what we're paying our teachers relative to what the cost is for our inflationary cost, we were paying them less than what we thought we were paying them in 19. So I'm not asking you to take this vote to choose Peter or to choose Paul. I'm asking you to take this vote to send a strong message in the House that we give a darn about public education. We give a darn about our teachers, our counselors, our librarians, our nurses, and that we hope that as this process moves, and as the King bill moves, and as the Chair Buckley bill moves on school finance and curriculum and all the changes, that when we start doling out the money, that somebody is going to give teachers a pay raise, and $10,000 should be a good start. And so that, Mr. Speaker and members, that's what this amendment does. Don't let anyone tell you that we are robbing the fund. We are still sending $8 billion. We are still sending $8 billion to the Property Tax Relief Fund. And most importantly, also understand, I will take this amendment down. I will take this amendment down if you can show me somewhere else in this budget where we can find $4 billion that isn't spoken for. Every single big ticket item we're going to do this session, from property tax cuts, TRS pensions, broadband, higher education endowment, you name it, if it's got a B next to it, we are going to spend it outside this budget. We are not going to be able to take and put. We're going to send it to the voters. If 100 folks in the House vote for it and 2/3 vote for it in the Senate and the governor signs it, we will spend that money if the voters approve it, and it'll be dedicated by the Constitution outside the spending cap. So if somebody wants to show me where $4 billion is lying around in TCEQ or, State Preservation Board or General Land Office, well, we can go there, but you're not going to find it. This is the only place in the budget where you can find $4 billion to support our teachers, but at the same time, let money move down the legislative process for property tax relief, something that both Democrats and Republicans support. This is a win-win. We send a message. We care about schools. We care about teachers. We also care about the work we're doing on tax cuts, and let both these things go forward. We're not under any illusions. Senate has their own ideas. This may not be it. And we also have conferees, ultimately, that may have different ideas. But if there is not a record vote in the House to show where we stand for this, then it's very easy to say that it's not a priority. So no gotchas here. This is just honest governance. This is just show me your values. Do you care about teachers? Show me your values. Do you care about raising their budgets like we cared about raising our budgets? And I hope this amendment is acceptable to the author.